Welcome to the show, folks. Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Rob is out of town, so I get the show all to myself. Jennifer Hernandez will be here tomorrow, and I believe Blake will be here Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll have a couple of guests, but most of the show, most of this week is going to be me talking. And I know some of y'all really like these shows, so we're going to go back to inflation. There's a show I did back in December. In fact, if I remember, it's December the 9th. And I said, get ready. Things are about to get crazy. It's about to get really expensive to buy real estate. In fact, I'll cut to the end of the show now and tell you this one thing. If you do not own the house that you are living in, that is the most important thing for you to do right now. There is no more important goal in your life than to own the house you live in. These houses are appreciating so fast and so much that your income cannot outpace the house appreciation. You've got to get in there and get it now, because it is going to blow you away how expensive these things get. What's driving it? Record low supply. And we don't see new supply coming on the market anytime soon. One of the challenges a lot of folks have is they think, oh yeah, well, supply's low, so eventually there'll be a bunch of supply on the market, like it'll be back to normal. That's not how it really works. Because the demand is self-perpetuating, meaning the demand is increasing. In buyers' mind, if you're out there as a buyer right now, as a buyer's agent, I had a joke when I had a bunch of folks here at the Texas Real Estate Investment Center. I think it was at Noble Mortgage's event. And I was doing a market update for everybody. And I looked out the windows of our community center, which is our big classroom, holds about 120 people. And I said, I can tell who my buyers and my sellers agents are. Sellers agents drove up today in Lambos. You got the Lamborghinis, you got the Ferraris out there. Maybe there's a couple of y'all have Maseratis. Couple Lexuses. The buyer's agents showed up in Hondas and Toyotas. All joking aside, it's tough to be a buyer's agent these days. Record low inventory. Record low, keeps going lower and lower. If all of the houses that are in forbearance, and I think it's just under 3 million, went into foreclosure and came on the market today, we would still be short 1 million homes. There's been a crash in real estate, and that crash is in the supply of houses available for sale. That's been the crash. There's not been a crash in demand, there's been a crash in supply. And here's the dirty little secret. I sent this out on my email list this morning. If you want to be on the email list, go to mrtxre.com. mrtxre.com. I wrote an article this morning, fired it out, that this is not the only place inflation is showing up, or appreciation, whatever you want to call it. You could almost use those two words synonymously at this point, because there's been so much money printed. And it's showing up all over the place. But here's the bottom line message. If you're going to be in real estate, you need to do so right now. I went back to my old shows when I used to work with the guys over at Right Path Real Estate. They've got shows going back 4 and 5 years of me. And I used to say this. I used to say, hey, don't get in a hurry. You know, real estate's going to be around for a while. You know, go to the real estate club you like, join the club that you like, join ours, join somebody else. It doesn't really matter. And then just go buy real estate when you're ready. Learn the things you need to learn, but don't take forever to learn stuff. Just when you get a little bit more comfortable. It's all going to be scary the first couple of times. It's all scary the first few times. So once you're a little comfortable, go out and buy a house. You can do it in a couple months, no biggie. Today, you can't wait. Houston, Texas, they're appreciating $3,300 a month on a $275,000 house. In fact, let me see if the HAR report is out for last month, which would be the April report. Oh, oh no, here it is. No, that's the April report, which is March. Just to give you some numbers, sales are up 32%. Active listings, which is a nice way of saying supply, is down 43%. That's a 74% change. If you had a 74% change in the stock market, people would either be getting rich, really, really rich, or jumping out of windows. Like that's a 74% swing in 12 months. Property sales are up 32%. Total active listings down 43%. Median home price in Houston, Texas is $290,000. I'm studying for my real estate license right now. I know it's crazy. Almost 2,000 transactions. I'm finally becoming a real estate agent. But I have to for our EXP team. That's really why I'm doing it. So I'm sitting there Thursday afternoon. It's probably 4:30, 5 o'clock. Got my feet up on the couch. Got the online study thing going. I'm taking a test. And I look out my window, and this is a house I'm staying at, one of my Airbnbs on the west side of town. And I'm looking out the window, and I notice the house next door has a for sale sign in the yard. Wasn't there this morning, or at least that morning, but it's there now. Between about 4 and 8 o'clock at night, they must have had 6 showings. And then it seemed like they were having showings most of the day Friday. And then Saturday, they had an open house, and it was packed. That house, just after Hurricane Harvey, which was about 3 years ago, was only worth $140,000. It's now listed at $230,000. 140 to 230. That's 90 grand in 3 years. I am all in on this Airbnb I bought for $110K. Now, what's fascinating is, let's do the math. 110 divided by 140 is 78%. A quote, 79% deal, which everybody said 3 years ago was not that great of a deal. Well, guess what? That house is now worth $230,000. By the end of the summer, it'll probably be worth $250,000, $260,000. And I'm into it for $110,000. Once you back out selling costs, I mean, I'll make a quick 125, 135 on it. That's just one house. And that's not going to stop anytime soon. We get back from the break. We'll talk more about inflation appreciation. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Welcome back. Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Great article this morning. It's not just real estate. It's cars. Automakers are ditching high-tech features amidst unprecedented semi-shortage. If you guys are not following what's going on in the semiconductor industry, they are having really brutal time getting chipsets delivered. And what are these chips in? Oh, everything. Cars, phones, your TV, your camera. Like, what doesn't? It's easier for you to walk around your house and your office and find things that don't have a chip in them than things that do. Like, what doesn't have a chip in it these days? Everything's got a chip in it. Your LED lights have chips in them. I mean, there's just nothing that's analog anymore. Everything's got a chip in it. Ford, about 2 weeks ago, came out and said, we can't get enough chips, computers, for our vehicles, so and there's no way we're going to sell as many as we did last year. There's just a huge shortage. So what's been the response to that? Companies are coming out and saying, hey, look, Nissan basically said, hey, we're leaving out navigation systems in our vehicles because we can't get the chips to run the navigation, the nav computers. Dodge said that their Ram 1500s with a feature called intelligent rear view mirrors will no longer be offered. They just can't get the computers to run it. This is what inflation looks like. They're going to sell them for the same price. You're just not going to be able to get the same features. And this is not just in the United States, all over the world. Peugeot and GM has said they've removed some features, some fuel economy modules that are not required by the governments in which they're bringing those vehicles into production. However, they've said we're just getting rid of stuff. They're literally going in and taking out features for cars and trucks because they can't get the chips to run them. And the prices are going to stay the same. I can guarantee you that. So if the demand is the same and the supply is limited, what happens to price? It goes up. I'll tell you, 2019, tail end in 2019, Q4, I was looking hard at a Porsche GT3 RS or a Lamborghini Huracan. I don't like buying that stuff new. First of all, the guys that own them never drive them. That's kind of the dirty secret in exotic car ownership. Most guys don't drive more than, 1,500, 2,000 miles a year, if that. I know a lot of guys that try and keep them under 200 miles a month, which is about 2,400 miles a year. And then, of course, my thought has always been, why? You buy a car so you can't drive it? That seems kind of absurd to me. But I've always been a bit of a driver and not a collector. So I like buying them used that are a couple years old. About this time, maybe a little bit later, 2019 Q3, Q4, you could pick up a Lamborghini Huracan for about a 3-4-year-old model, maybe 5 years with not a lot of miles on it, for like $160 to $175. Those cars are $300,000 with a couple of options. So literally half the price if it's about 5 years old. Maybe a little bit more than half the price, like 60%. Same thing with the GT3 RS. You can get one for $170, $180. If you look now, those used cars are $50 and $60 grand more. It's just overnight, 50 to 60 G's more. My little Land Cruiser I picked up earlier this month, I was chatting with the guys at the shop on Friday. I bought it for 15 grand. And it does run and you can drive it. It's just real dangerous. So that's why it's at the shop. We're going to put about $6,000 in it. So I'll be in for about 21. And the guys at the shop said, look, you can turn around and sell this for 25 to 30 all day long. If you wait, maybe 35K. I've got picked it up yesterday. I've got a 2000 Integra Type R. Great car. We believe there are only 1,000 left in the United States. There's just not that many of them out there. And that was over the 4 years they built them. A lot of them are raced. Most of them are crashed or stolen, stripped for parts. There's just not a whole lot of them left. I bought that car for 25 grand in 2018. It's probably worth close to 40. So it's not just houses. It's everything's getting more expensive. In fact, this article came out, I want to say it was yesterday. Yeah, May 9th. And the article is visualizing what $50K in lumber can build you today versus last year. If you're not following, and I totally get it, you guys got better things to do than worry about timber and longboard futures. But lumber has gone up almost 400% in 12 months. Now, this I know is temporary. But do you think it's going to go back to how it was in 2019? I don't think so. In 1 year, $50,000 in lumber could have built you 10 and a half single-family homes. In 2020, $50,000 in lumber would get you almost 11 houses. Think about it. 50 grand in lumber, 11 houses. Today, it'll get you 3. That's the price of inflation. A year ago, you could build 11 houses with 50 grand in lumber. Today, you can only build 3. And you wonder why houses are getting more expensive. A lot of builders over the last 10 years have just said, hey, it's not a good business decision to build affordable homes. Homes at or below the median home price. It makes much more sense for us to build higher priced homes. And this is one of the reasons. The cost of wood has gone through the roof. Now, all my finance buddies are telling me that wood should start to come down somewhere around Q3, Q4. But I'll tell you, when I looked at wood futures on Friday, they were, again, at a record all-time high. So this is not getting any better. In fact, the joke is, abandoned homes typically get stripped for their electrical components, meaning the copper and any kind of copper plumbing. They'll come in there and just steal the copper. They'll steal the copper out of the AC. Well, now the joke is they're moving the copper out so they can steal the 2x4s in the framing. Now, that's not actually happening, I'll tell you that. But I do know folks that are having to hide materials on their job site. I'm renovating a house in Spring Branch, and my neighbor, kind of catty corner 3 doors down, he's doing a huge addition on the back of his house. It looks like he's going to double the size of the house. And when they first started working on it, they had all their wood and materials out in the front yard. Normally, that'd be no big deal. Like, nobody's going to go and steal some plywood. I mean, come on. But now they got it all moved to the backyard. This is going to have a trickle-down effect in a lot of industries, especially in real estate. This limit in the number of homes that are available for sale is going to have major repercussions. However, it's going to be great for real estate investors. We get back from the break. I want to talk about what rents are doing. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Welcome back, Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. We're talking about inflation. What are the big worries, big scares out there? I'm pulling up an article right now. It came out Thursday, Friday last week. And they're basically saying rents are going to be up almost 20% year over year. So let me explain what's going on here. A couple of these things are just temporary, but some of this is not. Houses are appreciating so fast that people towards the bottom, house buyers, are just not going to be able to afford a house. Every month that goes by, thousands of potential homeowners are dropped out of the home buyer market because the real estate's too expensive. Somebody was telling me a story, and I can't remember. I think it was Friday at our fish fry. Somebody had said they listed a house for $135. It appraised at $140. The high offer which they took was $185. And it didn't appraise, but the buyer paid the difference. That's a very Austin thing. That's a very Southern California thing. That's a very Florida. Not so much in New York because that market's kind of slowed down a lot. They do it in Seattle. The comparables, the sales comparables used to obtain a mortgage are not coming in fast enough to the realities of the marketplace. This is very typical. When there's a lot of movement in the market, you hear it sometimes called froth. When there's a whole bunch of buying and selling activity and it's a seller's market, the appraisals have a hard time keeping up with what the real market demand, market value is. So you've got all these potential homeowners that are being bumped out of the marketplace because real estate is becoming too expensive. But here's the deal. They got to live somewhere. Where are they going to live? Well, they're going to rent. Well, here's the problem with rents right now. There's a couple of problems. One, as a landlord, when the house becomes so valuable, you've got to then sell it. When the house becomes really valuable, you've got to sell it. Taxes, insurance, the HOA, there comes to a point where it just doesn't really cash flow anymore. I can tell you that's what happened to the house next door, one of my Airbnbs. There were some tenants in there before. They moved out. The owner put it on the market. So what's that mean? There's one less house in that neighborhood available to rent. So what happens? One less house that's available for rent. Eventually that happens 2 or 3 or 4 more times. And there's much more rental demand. There's more renters than there are rentals available. There are more renters than there are houses. And prices start going up. In fact, in that same 3 years, I used to rent that property before I did Airbnb for about $1,300 to $1,350 a month. That rent is now $1,750 a month. It's gone up $400 a month in 3 years. Now, the temporary thing that's putting pressure on lease prices is the moratorium. The rental moratorium, meaning you can't get people out of a house they're not paying, also means that there's one less house available to be rented in the market. Now, how many are there out there like that? We don't know. I think it's much less than people expect. Our non-collection of rents is relatively low. And I could ping, I'm in a landlord group. I could ping the guys in the landlord group to see what their non-collection of rents are, but it's pretty low. I think even in the height of the pandemic, it may have been 5%. But the lack of inventory for rental houses absolutely puts pressure on rents. So not only have houses become more expensive, they're now becoming more expensive to rent. Now keep in mind, too, there are not a whole lot of houses out there available to rent to begin with. And then we've got all these states, New York, California, where a lot of those folks want to move to Texas. What's that going to do to the housing market here? This whole idea that this is going to end soon or there's a crash coming doesn't make any sense. There's a crash in supply. There's just not enough houses out there. Now, as a real estate investor, what does that mean for you? It means if it produces cash flow, after you buy it, fix it, put it on the market, and I'll tell you right now, I hear this all the time, oh, it's rent ready, it doesn't need any rehab. And I'm like, no, that's not true. It absolutely needs rehab. They all do. So once you buy it, fix it up, and rent it, all you have to do is wait. Every house you buy makes you $3,300 a month in Houston, Texas. Think about that for a minute. How many people have got to work a full-time job to make $3,300 a month? Heck, college educated, graduate degree, make $10,000 a month, maybe 15. You could do that with 5 houses. That's how insane this marketplace is, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. My prediction is 2027 or 2028. We'll start to see a slowdown when we go into those years, but I don't see this slowing down anytime soon. Builders need 10 years to catch up. Like, we've effectively not been building houses in the United States since 2008. We've got more bodies than we do housing. So this whole idea that this is going to end anytime soon is simply not true. And if you want to build a lot of wealth with real estate, now's the time to do it. So waiting around, every single house you pass on costs you $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month. That's the secret here. The secret that everybody messes up is the wait. Buy, fix, wait. Buy, fix, wait. Just the wait. The wait is where the money is made. There's no hurry to sell a house, but there's a hurry to buy one. And I keep looking at the data. I'm like, someone tell me where the real estate slowdown is coming. Now, it could be that houses become so expensive. Then there could be a slowdown there, but I'm not seeing it happen anytime soon. We get back from a break. I'm going to wrap this all up. It's Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Welcome back. Jason Bible, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. I'm just going to share some facts with you. Redfin reported an 18% jump in median home sales price. As a record, 58% of all houses sell within 2 weeks, and 45% sell for more than their listing price, also a record. If you have a house for sale anywhere in this country, 58% chance it sells in 2 weeks or less. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And 45% sell for more than their listing price, which is incredible. It's never been that high. And allegedly, rent inflation is only 2% a year, which I think is funny. On Thursday, American Homes for Rent, which owns 54,000 houses, increased rents 11% on vacant properties in April, the company reported in a statement. So American Homes for Rent, which owns 54,000 houses, they own houses in Texas. I know because we've sold some to them. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, my former partner rehabbed some for American Homes for Rent. Largest landlord in the country, 54,000 homes. They increased rents in a month by 11%. And my guess is that's conservative. They're at about 97.3% occupancy. So they decided to just go ahead and raise rents. It is going to be brutally expensive to live anywhere in a major metropolitan area in the United States. And folks ask me all the time, well, Jason, what if they can no longer afford homes? I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are going to start scaling back other consumer purchases. Might be buying a used car instead of a new car. Maybe not going to be able to save for the kids' college because you got to put a roof over your head. Not going to buy the newest iPhone because we need to be able to pay rent. That's where all this is going. The reality is you don't need a fancy phone. You don't need a new car every couple of years. You don't need the best clothes. But you do need a roof over your head. And the largest landlords in the country can see where the market's headed. I mean, as smart as we are, these guys have teams of finance nerds that are spending all day poring over the data. You know, the joke is McDonald's spends $500,000 to $1 million just picking a place to put one of their restaurants. You know what Burger King does? They set up across the street. That's all we're doing. Truth be told, that's all we're doing. I just sit here and watch the guys that have a lot more money at risk, and I just look around, I see what they're doing. I'm like, I'm just going to be Burger King. I'm just going to set up across the street from them. Ran into a buddy of mine. What was that, Thursday? What was Cinco de Mayo? Wednesday? So Wednesday, ran into a buddy of mine. He said, hey, come on out to this event. It'll be fun. We had a blast. Met a guy that's a commercial property manager. They're about to take over let's call it 100-plus unit apartment complex next to a smaller one that we're about to contract. And I said, how's it going over there? And he's like, man, it's pretty good, but, this is kind of messed up, and we're going to fix all these things. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, I think I got the one next door under contract. And he's like, oh, yeah, I should do really well. He just told me what their business plan is for the one next door. I'm just going to do the same thing. This goes back to something Jim Rohn used to say, success leaves clues. There's a lot of clues out there. I'm watching what American Homes for Rent is doing, Invitation Homes, Colony. Blackstone's got their hands all over this single family stuff. I'm just watching what those guys are doing, and then I'm just going to go do a whole lot of that. I mean, these guys are hiring some of the sharpest folks in mathematics to run all their models. So I just sit there and look at it and go, oh, they're buying in this neighborhood? Let's go buy over there. Or let's buy in the neighborhood next door. That's a little less expensive. I was looking at an apartment complex last week, and it was so funny. I do a Google Earth thing. So you pull up the address, you put it into Google Earth, and it'll show you what it looks like on the street. So you see this apartment complex, it's dilapidated, needs $1 gazillion in work. I mean, typical deal that we do here at Mr. Texas Real Estate. And then I swung the camera around on Google Earth, and what was across the street? Brand new $500,000 townhomes. I almost said right then, I'm like, we don't have to walk, let's go buy it. If it's not much more expensive than the dirt is, why are we even discussing this? Somebody with a lot more money and a lot more at risk across the street said, hey, we're going to build $500,000 townhomes over here, even though the neighborhood's a little rough. So now let's just buy the ones across the street. A good academic term for this is borrowed excellence. I'm just cheating off somebody else's hard work. Oh, you're building that over there? Okay, well, why don't we just set up across the street? It's amazing what you can learn when you're humble enough to listen. People's businesses right now that are having real challenges are those folks that are trying to do things the way they did last year. Last year was Corona. This year is inflation. Heck, you could probably, if you were to turn this into a health show, I'm willing to bet inflation will probably kill more Americans than Corona does. This is not the first time I've said that, by the way. That doesn't mean it's any less controversial. Inflation is incredibly deadly for savers. So for those of y'all out there that are just waiting, I got some cash, I need to wait, be warned, that cash is worth less every day. You're losing buying power in real estate to the tune of 20% a year. So if you had $100,000 last year and didn't buy a single family house, guess what? It's only worth $80,000 in the same marketplace. That's why it's so critical to get out there and buy that house now. Whether it's the roof over your head or the roof you're going to rent to another family, you have got to get in the game. This is what I thought was so funny. Last year, I kept seeing people on Facebook posting, well, I don't want to overpay for real estate. I'm like, what does that mean? Because it's appreciating $3,000 a month. If you quote overpaid by 20 grand, you'd be at break even by what? 6, 7 months in, 8 months in? Add rents and everything else, you'd be at break even probably at 6 months. So I'm telling you, I'm not one of these guys like, you got to buy now, high pressure sales, dude. I'm just not. Partly because I let people make their own decisions. Hey, does this seem like it's for you? Great. If not, no big deal. Let's move on. But I'll tell you this, if you've got any interest in real estate, you've got to start now. Go to mrtxre.com, mrtxre.com. We got one last segment here, and then I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening.